So,
Mhm.
this is JX Drive, a show where we dive into all things design. I'm Isabella.
And I'm Dan.
Okay, so today we're talking about the future of designing for user interfaces and getting all into all of the new and existing technologies and their interfaces and how we see that changing design itself. So, where to start? Okay, biggest and like the most recent, the Apple Vision Pro and how that goes with MetaQuest and VR. Do you want to talk about your take on that new announcement?
I'm excited. Definitely excited about. Um, definitely excited about the announcement because VR has been around for a long time within gaming industry, and then also uh, within the user interface in digital industry, holistically, because it changes the way people experience realities. So gaming has always been a challenge. Like you're in a flat screen. I remember a long time ago when I was in school, I used to play video games on the computer. And
Like what?
Unreal Tournament. You probably haven't even heard of it.
I have not.
It's still out there, like Half-Life and Halo. And Halo. I mean, most of them are fighting games, by the way. And even little things like other games like Mario Kart or Nintendo, and it's the challenge is always there. How can you make it real so that you're part of the environment that you're in to play a game? 3D came to life, and then the gaming industry adopted 3D very quickly than any other industry, as far as my experience goes in the past. So definitely, Apple Vision Pro and MetaQuest is going to change the way we look at things completely. So it's very exciting from a technological perspective, from industry perspective. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Would you consider getting either of them? At this point, at this stage of where they're at, would you consider?
Price point perspective?
Not thinking about price point.
But okay.
I mean, MetaQuest is only like what, $300? Apple Vision Pro, that one's gonna be crazy.
Yes, 3,499. I think that's what I remember it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we'll put the pricing aside.
Yeah.
Would I buy one of them? Probably I would buy one of them because I wanted to try out what the experience is going to look like.
Which one? They're very different, I would say.
They are going to be different because definitely quality and the experience and the features, what they're going to release is going to be different. And of course, MetaQuest will have to think from a Facebook functionality perspective, then Instagram functionality perspective, right? How MetaQuest is going to promote within those two platforms to make things more real to the user. So there's a lot more in that stream. And of course, they can't stop there because they have to think of the future of metaverse and e-commerce, to list goes on. Where Apple Vision Pro, I think, of course, it's not out there yet, but from what I have read and what I've seen, it's definitely a much more holistic understanding because they've always been manufacturing products to end-to-end experiences. So they should be thinking about, or maybe they have, not just how that needs to be connected to the Apple family, right? From your phone to your watch, your MacBooks, to everything else that goes with it, plus everything else in the house, any other wearables. Also, if you're taking it to a conference, if you're taking it to any other places, they need to think much more broadly. So their features and functions are going to be different. So I think it'll come to that. It's just like you're buying a Apple computer, various Apple computers to it.
That's like the thing though, like is the intention to like not replace the MacBook or like any computer that they have, or is it just to like go along with it? Like it's not an addition, but something else that you can have in their like ecosystem?
I think definitely it's going to be part of the ecosystem. I don't think it's going to replace anything now, because we humans need to adapt, and we hate change. So we like, we do like to try new things, but it doesn't mean that we are ready to change. So I think it'll take time. If they're going to replace something, I think people need to adjust to that change. A simple factor of it, some people, give an example. Some people are good at using a mouse when you're working through it. I mean, we are in creative industry, in design industry, and software. So we like, some people like to use mouse. Some people like to use a trackpad. Now, if you're a person who have adapted your usage on a computer with a trackpad, not being used to mouse, then that's your way of experiencing, using a computer. For me, I tried the trackpad and I tried the mouse. I think I'm so used to, my brain is wired in a way that, you know what I mean? But it takes time. Adaptation takes time.
That's definitely like a good point, because like you probably are more familiar with using desktops, right?
Yes.
When I started using computers and I started using like laptops, especially for design, it's only been a laptop and only been a trackpad, because that's like the only thing I had accessible to me at the point, like to the point. So it's definitely, I think that definitely plays along into it. Like the like newer generation, maybe all they're gonna have experience with is like hand gestures and eye tracking, and they're like not even gonna know how to use either a mouse or a trackpad.
Absolutely. I think that's what it's a generative or generational change in technology.
Yeah.
Every generation adapt to what is latest there. Of course, the access towards those technology and devices is going to play a part as well. So I think going back to adaptability, yes, I'll definitely would try both of them and see what it's going to offer. And from an industry perspective, being in this industry, how this is going to change what we do every day.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've definitely stayed away from the MetaQuest because I get really bad motion sickness, and that's something you experience, like, very, like, especially with gaming. Like, if I'm playing a game, I'm going to be playing it for longer than 30 minutes. And that's, like, the kind of the limit of, like, motion sickness, where you start to get motion sick, and, like, I don't want to deal with that. So I've always stayed away from it, even though there's a lot of games on there that I would like to play, but it's fine. I just stayed away from it. I didn't want to get motion sickness. But with the Apple Vision Pro, since it's more AR, and you kind of have like your grounding, and you can like look around, and you won't get as motion sick, I'm assuming, because you can see your surroundings. MetaQuest, you can't see it at all. That's why I think I would be more interested in it, especially like being in the design industry. You kind of have to have experience with these technologies to design for it. So I feel like either way, you're going to have to get like familiarized with it.
Definitely, yes. And I think that like, I agree with you. So the two different headsets have substantial differences when it comes to realities.
Yeah.
So with Apple Vision Pro, for me, I think I can resonate or relate to motion sickness as well. When I used to play Unreal Tournament, it's about, of course, fighting, and then it's about it's like a battle between two forces. So you're constantly moving, and then you're trying to find people and shoot and things like that. And after a while, you really get that, and you need to get a break from that to come to reality of where you are, your surroundings and grounding. With Apple Vision Pro, it looks like you're in a VR set, but you're seeing through an augmented reality perspective. So you can see where you are, and then you see your groundings, and then and a layer in between, and how that works out. I mean, it's like you're having a screen that's like a glass, and you can see the background, which is your actual reality of where you are. I think there's definitely those two differences there. It'll be interesting to see how the next gen of these devices is going to play, because these are the first releases, and as we know that most of these first releases always when people are starting to use it, that testing or the feedback of these will improve the user experiences as that's the next generation of wearables.
Yeah, and Definitely, I want to see how the Apple Vision Pro plays out within like controlling it because I can see hand gestures getting very tiring. Like imagine having to do like a Google search or just research and just having to like move your hand around the whole time.
Yes, I mean, you mentioned yesterday about Black Mirror on Netflix,
Yeah.
and I went and actually, of course, I haven't watched it before. So the one of the first episodes that I watched, it's about that people are living in this. It's like a building that full of screens, and they are all controlled by your hand gestures. You can play
Yeah.
games. You can actually look at. It's all about moving your fingers, your palms, and again, like your hand. Most of it are like that. And there was there was a scene that there was a guy that was riding a bicycle. Like a treadmill, not a treadmill. It's a
Yeah.
bicycle.
Yeah.
And then he was playing a game. Of course, so he's a shooting game, and he was holding a gun like that, and he was shooting these things. And of course, the sensors are picking it up, and the motion is picking up, and you're actually getting used to those things. But how long you can do it? It's not like you're in a real battlefield in a war that you get really tired. But how long can you do that? So I agree. So it's actually challenging for how long you can do these things. Where in a gaming console, you're actually just pressing buttons and getting used to that. So
Yeah.
it's less energy that's been consumed towards to physical energy consumed to do that. So it'll be very interesting to see how these headsets drive towards certain experiences as well. Designing for these from an interface design perspective, it's a very different challenge. And then human experience or human engagement on physical engagement within these sets is another. So I think we were talking about before, like empathy maps, and what you see, what you think, what you do, right, what you feel. That's definitely going to make the center of all these experiences. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, and like on the interface side, we were talking kind of about where things are placed on our phone in reach of our thumb. So I can see it kind of getting closer, like where things are placed in your screen in relation to like how far you can reach. But that also goes into accessibility because it's like, what if it's someone who can't reach like that far in the corner, like that far down in the corner? It's like, where does that fit in?
Yes. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier as well, which is we definitely, these wearables really need to comply with accessibility.
Yeah.
Right? People are disabled, and the population is growing. I'm not saying that I'm not hoping that more disabled people are going to be there. We need to. Population is a ratio. That's a fact. It's a truth. Like the population grows, and then you have various types of humans, and of course you get more people that can be. It could be from any reasons, that from accidents. So you will have disabled people. You're looking vision impaired. You have lost your fingers with an accident, or you were born like that, and you have all sorts of things, right? So we really need to think about how to be inclusive within the human parameters or human physical parameters. People who can't move their fingers as much as that anyone else or a healthy person do, right? And of course, mental health is going to play a huge part as well. So how are we going to be compliant to accessibility and also compliant to mental health and compliant to like our everyday life, and how we balance within different realities within their actual life in general? Are we displacing ourselves within that? So that's it's a broader conversation. But again, come back to accessibility. I think hand gestures, hand movements, even speech, like somebody who can't speak, right? Somebody who's deaf, and we need to think about all of that. So I'm sure that Apple Vision Pro as well as MetaQuest have gone through that. I'm not saying that they haven't thought about it, but I haven't used any of it. I don't know what it is. But accessibility is going to be a huge, huge part of it. And we are in a world that inclusivity within broader spectrum is very important today. From genders to disabilities to races to everything. So I think these technologies really needs to comply with that to be successful. To be again accessible to everyone. Are we really only think about one set of people again? So
Yeah.
that's a bigger conversation. I think, yeah, I agree, and we did talk about it. Accessibility is going to be a massive part since we are in the digital space, and even when we do a software as a service on a platform we design, even it's AI driven, right? Still, there is a user interface that people need to experience with. Everything has to have a user interface, so that interface needs to be comply with accessibility, from font sizes to color contrast, to a lot of things. And what's the most practical experience we can give it, that it is comply to every type of a human being.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how customizable these just base interfaces are going to be with the Apple Vision Pro, because if you think about, say, a MacBook, everyone's kind of looks the same, desktop wise. Yeah, you can change the picture, maybe the text size, but with something like that, where it is AR based, hand gestures, eye tracking, it's gonna have to become really customizable for each person. So that's gonna be kind of cool, thinking you could put on someone else's headset and it looked completely different because it's custom to their needs. So it's gonna be really interesting to see where that design goes.
See, it's good that you brought that up. We always have this conversation around customization and personalization, right? So you're talking. I mean that goes into digital marketing as well. It goes into social media, any platform or a device that in play. How can we customize, or how can we allow the user to customize their own experience within the platform? That's number one, right? That actually making them to personalize their platform the way we want it. So customization and personalization are always going to be a big part of any technology, any wearable. So when it comes to that, I think the whole the best way to put it is that democratization, right? How can we allow the user to control what they wanted to do so they can actually put their content out there? So I'm using Apple Vision Pro, I'm using Meta Quest, and this will go to how can I create something within these wearables so I can put something out there. So there is a connection to it, it's interconnected. It's this linking or linkages to personalization, customization, then democratization, which is you're putting your content out there for somebody else to use it, or your platform is democratizing so people can actually use to put their content out there. So there's a huge connectivity between these two. So it's very, very interesting. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to move into voice assistant devices like Siri, Google, Alexa, and how they're integrated into our lives?
Are we talking about just voice assistant wearables, or are we talking from
in
that
general?
In
Yeah.
general, or how is it connected through the virtual reality headsets?
Well, we're going to start in general and then go into how this connectivity is going to work. A really interesting announcement that I saw actually was that with Siri, you're not going to have to say, "Hey Siri" anymore. It's just going to be Siri. And I think it sounds so minor, but that change is reflective of a lot. Now we're thinking of these things as not a
device.
It's more of an assistant.
Assistant, yes. No, that's a very good point. I think Google is still expecting us to say, "Hey Google."
Probably.
Yes.
I'm sure that's going to phase out though.
Siri, Alexa was
always just Alexa. Yeah.
So that was already been there. I think it's just that others are adapting again to the competition. We already know the technology is there to connect all devices, either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth for right now, right? So all these wearables is going to be connected to internet, or it's be connected to Wi-Fi, which is internet, right? or it will be connected to other devices via Bluetooth, whichever that we choose to do. So as soon as we do connect them, assistant or digital assistant wearables is going to play a huge role. Now, I do have Alexa at home. Now, it's connected to my TV, it's connected to my phone, it's connected to everything that I digitally connect. I mean, anything that is possibly and digitally that will be connected, it is connected. So wearables are going to be connected to digital assistants. I think it's given. I'm sure that feature is there on both of them, which is Meta Quest and Apple Vision Pro. They will be. There has to be. We don't know, but I'm sure it will be. So if that's the case, then we can simply talk to Alexa or Siri or Google or Watson or whoever that is, right? That assistant say, "Oh, can you please? I'm just too lazy to do anything or hand gestures, or I just lazy, or I just can't be bothered, or can you do it?" Because we have become much more lazy than how we used to be, because remote controls to everything start now. Like, we don't have to walk into a music player to change. You can just tell Siri what to play. I don't even have to pick my phone what playlist I want to play. I just tell Siri to do it, right? So in the same context, you basically tell.
Is that laziness or just efficiency?
You can go either way or whichever way. It's just that we just don't want to work hard at it, because it's becoming easier.
Because we don't have to.
Yeah, that's again a different argument.
Okay.
So let's not go there. But we have our own basic principles in life of how we've grown up, and that's a different conversation. But let's say that we will, for whatever the reason, we are going to call out to our digital assistant, say, "Please change my atmosphere on Meta Quest to Apple Vision Pro." And the digital assistant will say, what atmosphere would you like? I like to see a waterfall. So it just changed into waterfall, right? So I'm just saying that it will definitely be interconnected. The conversation is about whether it will be connected. Yes, it will be, or it already is, right? We just don't know because it's not in the market yet to experience. So it's coming. So it will be very interesting to see how that's all going to be connected. I mean, I want to reference back on Black Mirror episodes that we.
This is why I had you watch it before this, because there's so many references about how, like, the good ways it could go and the bad ways that it could go.
Definitely. I mean, there's within technology, within anything in this world, right? It's like you have a knife. You invented a knife and you started manufacturing. There's always good and a bad of that particular product's usage. So it's how humans going to make a decision. That's never going to change. There's always these two parts to it. Right? It's about who's right, who's wrong, right? So that's always going to be there. But the referencing to Black Mirror and these variables, and then how we interact with that, it's very relative. I'm just taking an example again. Sorry, I was diverting the conversation there. So taking an example from Black Mirror, there are two ways that we see it, right? Some of the users are going to use these products and technology in a self-destructive way, right? It says how they make their decision. I'm going to use this for very different purposes, but that's my own way of doing it. At the same time, I'm going to say, no, I'm only going to use this for productivity, efficiency, to learn, to grow, and for the best of, or the best for the humanity, for example, right? And schools and education, for example, right? This can be a huge and a vast advancement for education.
Oh yeah, maybe people won't feel the need to go see the Titanic in person because we can just experience it.
Absolutely,
online.
That's a good point. We don't want to lose any lives. Yes. So, of course, it's just it is a lot of references again for human interaction, right and wrong, and how it's being used. So, I guess again, compliance legislation, cybersecurity, to all that will play a huge part on these wearables. And it will be interesting to see what other measures that they're going to take in the next phase.
Wait, so what was your Black Mirror reference?
The Black Mirror reference was people use these digital experience for their own good or own destruction.
Yeah.
So, for example, maybe I'm wrong. This is my perspective, of course, right? The guy I was talking about, he's always playing these shooting games and killing people on the game, and he's always angry. I don't know whether they're trying to show that person's mentality out of it. He's always angry. He's treating the person who's cleaned that gym terribly, and he doesn't care about how other people feel. He's just so brash and say whatever he wants to say. There's no emotional intelligence. There's no empathy from him. Where you can see another person who's just looking at gardens and waterfalls, and so he might is more calmer, and like their personality or the reaction or the behavior is very different. Maybe it's a reference, but I'm not sure is that what they're trying to show to the viewer. But that's how I understood. That's what I'm saying. So wearables also going to be that. It's how humans we going to make a decision on how to use it.
Yeah, definitely. There's always been like the argument about like what we consume and how that affects us, but it definitely comes down to like each individual's mentality. And like if you're consuming all of this like violent media, like maybe if it's like ingrained in your mentality already and you just normalize it to yourself. But it's really funny because there's this one Black Mirror episode I didn't recommend to you because I was like, I don't want you to watch it and then like drop the show. But every time there's any developments within like AR, VR, people make jokes about this episode because it's like the whole concept of the episode is that like it's a VR like gaming headset and like the implications that could have on our personal relationships. Everyone always makes memes about it whenever there's any developments because it's just it's so goofy and funny, but it could also be so real. So that's like your next one that you have to watch.
Going back to it, I think first thing that I spoke to you when I came into it is that the second or third episode third episode of season 2 about the whole history of your life. That has a similar plot or a storyline to some of the movies that has been generated a long time ago, like The Adaptation and Beautiful Thing for a Spotless Mind or something like that. That's the same author and same movie set. So it's all about talking your mindfulness, your memory, and how you can erase your memory, how you can change your memory. So it's very interesting on how that particular episode. So you have an implant, and you have these again embedded screens like lenses where you can see everything can be recorded, and you have a little kind of a little electronic device you can actually rewind and watch everything that you went through for the day or the week, and even security has been integrated towards your implant. So when you go through an airport or any security barriers in day-to-day life, they can check who you are very quickly because it's a digital implant. It's a digital signature. That was very interesting because I've experienced similar stories before, but when you watch it, do I really want to remember the past so vividly?
Oh no.
Exactly. So why do you want to do that? I mean, we talk about, these days people talk about mental health and wellness, like meditation, how to live for the present. And if you are trying to promote that, this is completely opposite of it. I'm not saying completely against it. I'm saying completely opposite of it. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, and it's like if you think about it, like when people experience like say traumatic events, sometimes their brains just completely block it. They have no memory of it whatsoever. And you have to think that it's kind of for a reason. So why would like you go and like just remember that? Like just have that there. It's stored somewhere. Like that's
So it's interesting. So yesterday, because I got really interested about what this show is about, so I went into a research of I think it's called modifying your DNA. Apparently, 1 milligram or 1 milligram of your DNA can store 7 billion or 700 billion digital books. Same book can be multiplied and stored within 1 milligram of your DNA. DNA, what they're saying is DNA is like it's like a data bank. It's like a hard disk, right? It is related. I mean, it is there's a reference towards that how electricity also within our body and how DNA connects and how this whole ecosystem works. And also they have done testing that how you can modify your DNA to have a better outlook or a better perspective in life. Your behavior can change because apparently DNA remembers your generational, like it's a generational memory, like your parents to grandparents to your bloodline and so on and so forth. And it's very, very interesting how this is all related to your mind and how all relates to technology, how all relates to what we see and how I absorb information and interact with information, which is related to interfaces again, because it comes back to empathy mapping, right? What we see, how we feel, what we touch, and what we say and hear, that's creating your atmosphere. So from a, again, UX perspective, user experience perspective, designing a screen, right? The methodology is not going to change. And the way we approach design is not going to change. Because if you are really thinking of human-centered design, that is the epitome of it, empathy map. What we see, what we think, how we feel, touch, say, hear. So these senses are not going to change unless we actually change our human body completely of the way we are, how our senses work. So it all goes back to it. And that's where the references come from, even with BlackBerry. I mean, we were talking about Apple Vision Pro to Meta Quest. What these wearables is doing is it's creating a different reality for our senses.
Yeah.
Right, which is mapped out or recognized by an empathy map. Right? So it can be the most prettiest or the most sensational. What that sensation is going to be is understanding the particular user's experience, but within their empathy mapping or experience mapping. I would say rather experience map, it's actually empathy map. So it's interesting. It comes back to core again. So when you design something, always think about how that person's empathy map, what that empathy map says, that particular user. That's not going to change. So you're creating your user group. See, it all goes back to our basic practices.
Yeah.
You know, we do a research. So we do research, we define it, the requirement, and when we ideate and we solutionize it, that's never going to change, right? I don't think so. I mean, if it changes, then I think we have to change as humans. Then our senses going to change. So it'll be interesting how wearables and how our human body and human thinking and our senses. It's very interesting that it's like a scale. You always have to balance those two to make it work.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how thinking about the future of it and how small these devices are going to get. Because right now they're kind of big and goofy, but they're going to get a lot smaller. But like you said, I don't think it's going to change how we design for the interfaces inside. The device itself can get smaller, but like these fundamentals are always going to stay consistent.
Yes, and also I think there are certain challenges globally you are going to face as well. I was at ISA, Cybersecurity chapter LA Wednesday evening, and the conversation is about Tom Patterson, who gave the speech, and he works across. I mean, he works across cybersecurity. He works across data migration and mining, and then of course in global scale. So he works with Washington and he's very exposed around how we work. And what he was telling us is that, see, all this is capturing data. Every single device is capturing data. And with these wearables, it's capturing a lot of data around human feelings to human functionality perspective. That means whatever data that's going to be collected, then companies is going to create more devices and more experiences, so targeting towards how can we capture more to sell more, to create revenue more. I mean, of course, that's a capitalist way of looking at it. But then again, there is the other side to it. While we are doing that, then there is a political challenges that we face, we go through these days within the world. So each country is protecting their data and IP. So we take about US, you're talking about China, you're talking about India, you've got Russia, you've got UK, Europe, and Africa and Asia, Australia, wherever that you are, you will protect your IP. You don't want to share that, and that's what this whole, with even US and China, we were talking about it, like, and even other countries as well, within the political scheme of things, how can we protect that? So it's all, like, there are so many layers of, towards it. So the compliance, legislation, cybersecurity will have a big layer on top of all this. While as consumers, we will talk about how cool it is and that. But there is an underlying layer towards it, which is interesting. That's a different topic, but that's interesting as well. But end of the day, it all comes back to that. How you can experience these devices as a wearable, and the screen technology is going to change within the augmented reality and the virtual reality. And most importantly, how generative AI and machine learning is going to play a big part on these.
Definitely. And like going into like privacy and like all of that, it's interesting because we're already seeing it change legislation and how it is, because like Alexa is like recording constantly, which is like can be good, can be bad. Like definitely a few news stories about it catching people like getting like murdered and being able to like prosecute people that way, like that's used as evidence. So it's interesting to learn like how these things have to change with technology.
Oh, it will be very interesting what the legislation is going to be, which is not a topic of this conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, it reminds me of Minority Report. If you haven't watched that movie, it's about that you get a. It's interesting. It's not coming from a technological. The message that they receive before somebody commit a crime, it's not coming through technology as in like a wearable. It's coming from two humans who can see a future, and they actually extracting that information out of their brain, and then they kind of calibrate thinking patterns of those humans, and then send a message saying, at this place within the next half an hour somebody's going to kill someone. So then they go and try to avoid that situation. So it's interesting, all these movies and then shows, as well as what technology is, what VR is happening. It's very, very interesting to see. And we were talking about Neuralink today, and we were talking about some other stuff with it. It'll be interesting how, again, referencing to Black Mirror, Neuralink, and Apple Vision Pro, Meta Quest, and wearables like digital. If you put all those technologies together, right? And I think we are really moving so fast towards that, having a chip in our brain to make things better for ourselves. I mean, of course, it's just a more, I would say, in a hopeful way for our humanity. But then again, what's the downside to it as well? So it will be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely, because they're going to have access. They already have access to so much, but that's like a different level where they just know pretty much everything about you, probably more than you even know about yourself. Yeah.
He seems a bit drained with this conversation now.
No.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Okay.
So yeah, we can go into the development of AR because earlier we're kind of talking about how like there's a generation that is already like used to it. Like they're not phased at all about the developments that are coming because it's like these little pockets of AR and VR have been going like for a while now. Even as simple as like Pokemon Go. Like I think that was the first like major like everyone knew what it was, everyone used it. But it was augmented reality, but I don't think a lot of people realized that at the time.
No, you're right. They didn't. They actually saw that as another game that has a cool feature.
Exactly.
So they didn't think about it's augmented reality. And development of augmented reality has been there for a while. IKEA used it before Amazon used it to create your best lounge room or your bedroom. And
You do love IKEA.
it's not that I do love IKEA. I'm just saying that IKEA. Let's not go there.
Okay. Anyways.
So IKEA have started. I mean from a day to day, like your consumer offered, I would say consumer perspective, IKEA did that while ago. They've always had that. They've always had their showrooms or their warehouse. I mean, of course their showrooms built to create an experience. How would you see that that IKEA setting or IKEA design? How it's all go together. They've always had that idea. So it's a matter of digitizing that. It's not that coming up with a new idea to represent. It's about using a new technology to represent what they already had in mind. So Amazon is doing the similar AR technology for how to increase the sales or how to increase the search engine optimization they have in their platform. About you see a chair, I know the size now. Is there anything that I can find from Amazon platform to purchase? What are the selections I have? What are the pricings I have? And these are the starting point of it. I mean, of course, there will be a way that how all this is going to be integrated for wearables like a headset, VR headset. Now, AR is going to be built into a lot more things. I mean, we don't think in that large scale, but imagine QR codes and barcodes of every single product that you purchase at a like a grocery store. Now, BCG and WWF with I think they actually started, this is about 6-7 years ago in Sydney that I was engaged in this project. They wanted to create a QR code so people who wants to buy a can of, I would say, like it's a piece of fish, right? In the packaging, there is a QR code. When you scan it, it tells you where it's sourced, whether it's sourced rightfully and legally, and no harm to anything, pretty much. And
except the fish.
Except for the fish, of course, right? Let's say even a potato, right?
Okay, we don't have to change the food. It's okay.
Exactly. Right? So wherever it's coming from, they wanted to, like, it's basically supply chain information of that you are consuming rightfully sourced product, for example, right?
Yeah.
So see, imagine that these technologies are already there. It's about correlation of these technology into one, right? How it's going to be, that's the fascinating part of it. And I'm really excited how all the correlation is going to happen. QR codes, barcodes. Then you have these scan, like your AR, how AR is going to work through that. Now, maybe QR codes and barcodes could die because your AI technology within augmented reality becomes so good, so advanced, that you don't even need to have a QR code or a barcode. You just look at the product, it tells you exactly what even the material made out of.
Yeah, there's this one tattoo artist in Bushwick that does tattoos, and you just like not even scan it because it's a regular tattoo to anyone who would look like it, but she has a different layer to where it is integrated with AR. She designs like a little animation that pops up if you scan it with your phone, like just a phone camera pointed at it, it'll pop up. And it's not even a code. It's not, well, like technically it is, but like, and it's not a traditional like QR code in a sense like that. It's just like a regular little tattoo.
It is, and that's exactly what I mean. Like the technology is already there. So technology, it's like how we're going to use and again connect to each other technology or correlate these technologies to create a better experience. I mean, yes, to the point that you're making before, it to make yourself efficient or more productive rather than calling it lazy, right?
Yeah.
So that that analogy, I can use it for something like you're doing groceries, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really being effective and productive about your grocery shopping.
Yeah. Because like right now, it's really hard for people with like, say like severe allergies. Like it could be like their allergen could be in anything and it might not even be on the label sometimes. Like it just happens to be in the vicinity of like their allergen.
Absolutely.
So with technology like that, that would like simplify where they don't have to go on Google and look up like what's in this product, like what's this ingredient in relation to maybe their allergen. So
yes, exactly. So the technology is going to help people a lot on making their lives much better of their challenges.
Yeah.
That's what technology, I mean, personally, this is my view or my perspective on technology. That's what technology is supposed to do, to make your life better, not worse, right? Again, going back to how people is going to use it, because we have all sorts of people in this world, and how they're going to continue and use it, it's going to be interesting. And that's where we touch base on legislation, law, or cybersecurity, and then a little bit of political agenda or political framework as well. And then also there is the piece of that mental health and your challenges, like how can this improve mental health? Will it improve mental health, or will it create more problems? Do we need more counselors and mental health professionals to help people as well, because we are going into these digital realms? So there is always two sides for it, and there is, again, talking about how our lives going to be much better with these technologies. It's like I said, correlation of all these technologies, from QR codes, barcodes, to augmented reality, to virtual reality. Within that, how generative AI and machine learning is going to help that connectivity is going to be very, very interesting to see. And again, digital assistants or like Siri, Alexa, Google, and Watson, it is AI within itself. Because when we say something, it's trying to understand what we're saying. So yeah, it is AI-driven technology. What's the next level towards that to connect these variables? It's going to be very interesting. Of course, it's going to be under the umbrella of IoT and human-computer interactions as well. Also, biotech. They've all come to play. While USC event that during the LA Tech Week. So I met this beautiful gentleman who was into biotech, who actually have a startup within the biotech industry in San Diego, and he was talking about how they are helping to improve the dialysis and blood transfusion technologies, and how to improve the actual physical product design. How to innovate that as well within the latest technologies, and understand, like AI, to understand the process of that of medical, a treatment. It's fascinating. I mean, that's fantastic. So this all there are a lot of ways we can drive this conversation or drive about it, but it again comes back to how the interface is going to be designed for humans to operate or experience these technologies. It's going to be fantastic. Oh, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, definitely at the stage it's at right now. If we're talking about like voice assistants and like AR, I think the reason why it hasn't been so like, I don't know, not successful, because obviously it's successful, but it hasn't been as big of a topic as it is now. It's very consumer based. Like it's very much like shopping, like, oh, like you can try stuff on, you can try things in your room. Like it's very niche to a scenario of shopping, and it's like so consumer based. But like now we're getting into like pretty much like the good things it can do. like the advancements that it'll have that are like more beneficial to like us as people.
Give an example of.
Okay, so going from AR,
Mm.
most people's like access to AR has been either games or like just consumerism, like trying clothes on, trying glasses on, trying things in your room. So it's like that's why it's like, oh, it's cool, but it's more of like a specific scenario that's more consumer based. So it's kind of like in its own like little corner, and you're like, oh, it's cool for that situation, but that's about it. And now we're going into like the Apple Vision Pro, where AR is getting more into like accessibility and like how people can navigate it, maybe like just with eye tracking, and they'd have like no like movement within like their hands, so they can't typically use a computer, but now they have the access to like all of this stuff because they have eye tracking. So it's not necessarily just consumer based, it's more of like accessibility in itself, where like you're making technology widely accessible.
Yes, totally agree. I think that's the next phase of human. I would say within the biotech. I think that's the best word to use it, or within the medical industry. How can we improve a lifestyle of a disabled person? How can we improve a life of challenged or like mental challenged person? Things like these human conditions are the, I think, triggers for us to push towards technology to make it better. I think I totally agree with that, and it's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, there are a few segments or within the market about these technologies. Of course, consumerism is a huge part of it. That's why most of the technologies comes out first towards consumerism.
Yeah.
It's about purchasing something, because of course this has to make money, right? For to invest within the research and development of these products. So that has to be there, right? Then it's actually moved towards, okay, now we have a technology which has been used for certain areas of markets. How can we make it usable for, or integrated or improved towards biotech, or within the medical industry, or within surgeries, things like that, in hospitals and treatment, right? And also it goes, then you actually goes beyond that, like mental health and lifestyle. So it seems like there is these 3 stages of improvements, or I would say 3 stages that moving across how technology is kind of delivered. First to consumerism, then for basically human biology and medicine and medical practices, and then also about mental health and lifestyle. Because it seems like all the time when you talk about mental health and lifestyle, that's like your leisure part, right? Mm-hmm. That's where I think people like to experience leisure, not within a VR set. I think I would love to go to beach and and sit in the sand. I feel like I'm sitting in the sand. I want to feel the water and real, like, I don't know whether we'll get to that part within technology in the future. We don't know yet. But personally, for me, I would like to go, and that's leisure. So you have to feel it within your human body experiences. Again, coming into the empathy nerve, right? So that's always comes in. Well, could be last, and it's the 3rd stage of technology, how it's evolved towards different industries. It's interesting, but I totally agree. It is helping the accessibility spectrum, or accessibility part of human interactions towards technology. Yeah.
Do you have any closing notes?
Oh, I can go on about closing notes. I think closing notes is very, very excited about what's to come within the next 6 months. I think 2023 has been a year for generative AI and machine learning. And then now we are going into this, how that is going into wearables like virtual reality headsets. Right now, we already got the news from Apple, and also we know MetaQuest, and we know all the other competitors out there. MetaQuest and Apple has been in the talk of the town, I would say, because everybody knows them. But there are other competitors as well. So next 6 months, everyone is on a race. They're in a race to release what's best. And AI, generative AI and machine learning is going to help these companies to come up with this faster execution towards deliverables as well. So it's be very interesting space to see. That's first. I want to like first closing notes around that technologies that, and then from a user interfaces and user experience perspective, my closing notes are no matter what technology comes to play, no matter what variable is going to come to play, and how improved these technologies are going to be, as long as human biology exists in the current state, which is we see certain things, we hear, we say, we feel from the touch, and we taste and smell and things like that. Until that exists, we always need to understand what the empathy maps tells us. That's one of the fundamental artifacts that we create within user experience design and user interface design. What the innovation looks like within the experience of a human. So I don't see that it's going to change for a very long. I hope it will never change, because I think we are humans. We will always be like this. But the technology is definitely going to be developed and created within those senses. So that's the second part to my closing notes on experience and how we design experiences within the interfaces as well. From a third or the last point, that closing note or the last point I wanted to make is that regardless which technology, regardless which experience or interfaces that we are going to create and design, there is always two sides of the story. So one is the what we call like what is good and evil, right, within the human race, or with what we see is good and what we see is evil, right? Kindness and hatred, or good and bad kind of thing. So there's always two sides of the story. These technologies, these experiences will be utilized and consumed and expressed towards the goodness of humanity, or goodness of what we do, how we become as a human race. Also, there is another part to it, which is, as we see in the world, good and evil. So this could be the evil part. So which is, people will use these technologies and these experiences and put out content to create, to make things, let's say, bad, or create a bad experience for other people to see, or it will be used to manipulate. It will be used to kill, or used to be hurtful towards other humans as well. So there's always two sides of this story, and which path that we are going to take as humans is our all conscious decision. So those are the three takes and closing notes for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.